Welcome back all. Today we're going to look at the doubling cube, this peculiar object with the numbers 2 to 64 on it, not like your normal dice with 1 to 6 on it at all, and when we use it at backgammon and when we accept it. So as I think we explained in the basics, the doubling cube can be used by the person who's about to play before they roll, not after they roll, and they offer it to the opponent, and the opponent either accepts and puts it on their side of the board or declines and turns it to back to 64 and starts the position again afresh. So this is an example here where the cube at the moment is in the middle and white is considering doubling. And the three things that we need to consider when we're doubling is: how is the position, how is the race, and what are the threats? And that makes a little acronym called PRAT, P-R-A-T, position, race and threats. And it really, if you have an advantage in all three areas, it's usually a pass. And if you've got an advantage in two of the areas, it's usually a double and it would be normal to accept. So let's have a look at the position here. Red has escaped the black back checkers, and white hasn't escaped the back checkers, and two of the checkers are behind a block of 4 points. If they were behind a block of 5 points, it would be an even bigger advantage, but it's a positional advantage for red, as you probably appreciate as you play more, that it's good to escape the back checkers and bad to have them stuck behind the opponent's prime. What about the race? Well, we can count it out here. We added up the number of points, which is 52, 68, 89, 107, 122 for red, and 43, 69, 93, 117, 127, 135 for white. So quite close in the race. And what about the threats? Red is threatening to make a new point. The really strong rolls are things like double one, putting a checker on the bar. That's very strong, putting a checker on the bar behind a 5 prime. Or alternatively 3-2, making this point. Or 4-2, making this point. And you see all of these small combination numbers are very strong. All of the doubles, double 4, very powerful. Double 3, pretty good. It'll make this point and hit this checker. And quite a lot of threats. And probably this position's a pass because the threats are just so strong. And I would think that this would be a double and a pass. You would have to put it into a computer to be sure, but I think I did, and I think I found out that it was a double and a pass. What about if the position is here? Now, there's very little in the race, but the main thing that you would find is that this is no longer a double because there aren't any threats. All of the little numbers that pointed on this one now are not particularly good. So 3-2, for example, is okay, but it only makes a new point here. It doesn't actually attack white at all. 4-3 makes a new point here still, but doesn't attack. And numbers like double 4 actually, they come down here, they're pretty good. But they're not as crushing as the other line. And this is actually not quite a double, a borderline double and an easy take. So there we have really the criteria is judging the position, the race and the threats. Sometimes if say this had come down here and white was back here, you might have enough of an advantage in the position to double on its own without the threats, because the race is so good. We're so far ahead in the race now. And if we might be well behind in the race, but something like this but we have such strong threats that we would have a double. So if this was here, we wouldn't have a double. And if this was here, we wouldn't have a double. But because these two checkers are loose and we've got numbers like 5, 3, 6, 4, 6, even numbers that hit these two would be very strong. So that we might double this position without a race advantage. So we don't have to have necessarily all three of them for us to be able to double and pass it. And the criteria really is judging which of the three, how significant each of them are. So if you've got an advantage in all three, you nearly always have a double. But beware of the positions where there are no threats, because you could just wait a roll or two till it gets a bit better and then double. One other thing that's worth mentioning is we have a disadvantage in the position. So this position looks quite good for white, and white is about equal in the race, but red has some tremendous threats. If white gets a 5, a 6 or a 1, the game is virtually over, because there'll be a checker behind the 6 prime. Whether this is enough to force a pass, I don't know, but I would think that it's probably a pass because of the gammons. And that's an example here where the threats are tremendous. The position in the race, nothing to speak of, no great problem. If we don't hit a shot, white will be fine. Red's got a checker behind the 4 prime, but the threats are overwhelming, and I think that's a pass. So really we need to consider the position, the race and the threats all together. An advantage in all three is a pass. Advantage in 2 of them is a double and a take. Advantage in only 1 of them is no double and and obviously a take. But the doubling cube is one of the biggest mysteries in backgammon, and I still quite often find the positions break the rules, and that's the beauty of the game really, and only practice can tell you and make perfect.